يا إمام رسل يا سندي أنت باب الله معتمدي فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations, peace and blessings upon the best of creation, the jewel and crown of creation, the beloved of Allah Almighty, the coolness to our eyes, the purpose of our lives, the reviver of our hearts, the inspirer to our minds, the awakener of our souls, the most honored one, the most praised one, the most generous one, the most kind one. Undoubtedly, he is the most beautiful one. None other than Sayyiduna Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa barak wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He has stated, يَوْمَ نَدْعُو كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. On that day, يعني يوم القيامة, on the day of reckoning, on the day of judgment, ندعو كل أناس بإمامهم, we will call all people behind their leaders. We will ask everyone to come forward and stand behind whom they took as a role model. Imam here though means leader, or the one who leads. But in a general context, Allah Almighty is telling us that He is clearly reminding us that on the day of judgment we will have to stand behind who we perceive as our role models. And no doubt, in the day and age that we live in, there are plenty of role models out there. There are many examples out there, especially for our younger generation. We live in the 21st century, it's a global village. The means of communication via social media and the way social media has been designed and built, our younger generation, those whom are in their early teens, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, up towards their mid-20s and even 30s, there's a lot available in terms of whom to take as a role model, whom to look up to, who we take our inspiration and guidance from. And sad to say that a lot of our youngsters religiously follow football stars, religiously follow musicians, religiously follow people whom don't represent the way of Islam, that are not good role models. Those who drink and smoke and party and who rap and who do all of these haram things, and our younger generation look to them as a source of guidance, as a source of inspiration. They will see the hairstyles that they keep and they want to emulate that hairstyle. Because my, idol, this person that I look up to, and look at the word idol. Idol is used generally in the context of worship. That this is somebody whom I'm worshipping. And sad to say, a lot of our young people are idolizing, which becomes, you can say, a form of worship. Idolizing these famous, popular, and at the same time, not just famous and popular, very rich, mega rich people, and saying that I want to be like him, and I want to follow him, and I want to drive a car like he's driving. Not knowing that those people in their craft have worked extremely hard to get to where they are. They've worked very hard. A lot of basketball players, a lot of footballers, a lot of sportsmen and women have worked hard at their craft to become rich and famous, etc. What they stand for, I've just mentioned, whether that's if they stand Islamically and religiously to the principles and values, that morals that we hold, then it's good, take good. But if they don't stand for that, then it should be avoided. Then we shouldn't follow. We've got enough role models and examples in our Islamic history. You should study the history of Islam. Like our youngsters sat here, the teenagers, like maybe 12, 13, 14-year-olds, buy them the very basic books on the history of Islam. If we don't know our own history, what do we know? If we don't know where we came from, how Islam started, beginning from the life of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, about our Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, how much do we know about his life? From their birth through their childhood to the time when Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam grew into an adult, and then their married life, their conduct with their companions, leader of the largest empire in the world, fastest growing religion in the world, how Islam spread after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time. Islam went into Iraq, Islam went into Morocco, Islam went into Syria, Islam went into Yemen, how Islam went into Iran, how Islam reached the Balkan states, Chechnya, Bosnia, Russia, how Islam entered into Europe through Spain, Muslim Spain, a huge part of history is Muslim Spain, how Islam grew and how it expanded. You ask these youngsters, they don't know nothing about the history of Islam. But the schools that they go to, they will be taught about Victorians, Anglo-Saxons, Europeans, Egyptians. They'll be taught about the Greeks and the history of the Greeks and the pyramids. They'll be taught in history lessons. This is what they'll be taught. And they'll know so much about that. But we need to inspire our younger generation to go and study the history of Islam. The Ad-Dawlatul Uthmaniyya, the Ottoman Empire, which ruled over Europe for a good part of 600 years nearly. When Islam was in Spain, how Islam came into the United Kingdom, how Islam entered into Pakistan and India, Barr-e-Saghir, Hindustan. None of our youngsters have this knowledge, and then you wonder why do they idolize those in the West? Why are they idolizing the footballers and the pop stars and those who are living luxury, lavish, extreme lifestyles? Because we as leaders, we as the community are not giving them an alternative, a better alternative. And what is a better alternative for our Muslim youth than to study the history of Islam? Learn about your tariq, like your history, where you came from, why we are where we are, what makes us Muslim. I mean, if you ask young people today, stand up, tell us about football and talk about your favorite football team, they could stand and talk about all day long. You asked a lot of the ones who are under the age of 14, 15 about PlayStation 5. A lot of them know everything about PS5, whether it's digital or whether it's disc related. You ask them about FIFA 21 or GTA 5 or Fortnite or these games. Dad, I want Fortnite. Dad, I want this. Dad, I want that. And they play these games, and computers are designed, they are programmed. There's a program in the way that computers run. And you have to understand that when you put your children, when you young kids sit there in front of a computer, there are certain things that are going to be subconsciously affecting your mind. It's going to seem attractive looking at these animations and these designs and the way it's playing and unlocking missions. There's so much psychology involved in console games. It's like when you download a game on your mobile, how they have designed that game. One, the layout, the design, but then there's missions. You've got to complete level 1, then level 2, then level 3, then level 4. And you go to school and you tell you, yeah, I'm on level 100. I've boxed this game off. I'm too good at this now. There's nobody who can play this game better than me. This is what youngsters will think. And this is what computer games, and this is what wastes their time. And when we look back at the previous generations, the likes of Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti and Nawawi and these great ulama whose example and names we always take, they didn't have computer games in their time to occupy their time. If our youngsters today their time is occupied and parents are giving them computer games, yeah, once in a while, 1 hour, 2 hours is more than enough time. But 8, 9, 10 hours, I'm going to play computer all day long. You're going to become a computer junkie. That's all you want to do. You become a junkie, that you've become addicted to it. You can't live without it. And if you don't get your way, you start crying. Oh, Dad, you're not fair. You're not doing this nice to me. You're not fair on me. Why though? You should be studying and reading a book every day. Every day you should be going over your sabak and not think I've gone to the masjid and I've done my 1 hour or 2 hours. Every day you should be doing something productive and positive to preserve the purity of your soul until the age of adolescence. You are ma'soom. Ma'soom meaning sinless. The purity of your soul. And computer games slowly corrupts the souls of young people. The Call of Duties and all these computer console games that our youth are playing, it is slowly corrupting them. And we need to, these kids, you guys need to wake up, man. You need to wake up and focus on what is important in life. Education is important. Go and study. Look at role models, historically, the great Islamic role models. Like, how often do we get a kid in our madrasa or in our community who says, Imam Sahib, I learned about a guy called Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. You know who Salahuddin is, Imam Sahib? He was that great Muslim leader. He was the great Muslim general. That for 2 years, he didn't sleep comfortably at night until he had liberated Masjid al-Aqsa. Imam, you know who what Masjid al-Aqsa is? Masjid al-Aqsa is the 3rd holiest mosque in the world. Young lad, where is Masjid al-Aqsa situated? It is in Jerusalem, Palestine. Palestine in the Middle East. And Salahuddin al-Ayyubi did not sleep until he had liberated Masjid al-Aqsa from the Christian crusade. Imam Sahib, I'm impressed by this man. I look up to this guy. How was he able to unite the Muslim Ummah, which was divided at that time, and to divert and focus all the attention on liberating Jerusalem and bringing Masjid al-Aqsa back into the hands of Muslims, into the control of Muslims. I've never heard a young kid get up and talk about Tariq bin Ziyad, this great Muslim leader who entered into Gibraltar, which is next to Spain, and brought Islam there. Jabal Tariq, the rock of Gibraltar, where Tariq bin Ziyad burnt all the ships and said, we are not going back to Morocco and the northern Africa. We will conquer Spain here. I don't see young kids talking about Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. I want to be like Hazrat Umar. Hazrat Umar was a just man. He was a good man. Why? How do they know how to be like them if we don't even teach them that? And education for youngsters begins from home first. From the parents, from the father and the mother. And then it goes on to the madrasa and the school. You are the first role model as a father to your son. In my life, my father was my first role model. And if I look at my father's life now, look back at it, he worked all his life. I can say comfortably, he may not have been the most educated. He may not have done 15 Jamata in Pakistan, or he got a degree here in the United Kingdom, but he had this hard working ethic. He worked hard. He wanted to work hard to provide food and give me an education. He says, if I didn't get educated or I didn't focus on my studies, I don't want my children to be like how I was, where I am struggling and striving. If you get a good education, you will get a good job. And if you have a good job, you will have an easy life. It will be comfortable, as in you can manage. Tomorrow you get married and children, etc. When I analyze my father's life, that's what I see. A man who worked hard, came into this country at 18, passed away at the age of 50. All his life, for 32 years of his life, he worked and worked. He didn't take a break every so often. Never traveled to any Dubai or only went to Pakistan and back. He didn't even have the blessing of going to do Umrah or Hajj. May Allah give him the ajr of Umrah and Hajj, for he had this intention. And Allah Almighty rewards people according to intentions. Have good intention. But this was my father's life. How are you as a father today? And a lot of our fathers are very similar. They are hard-working men. They go out every day to work, earn money, and put food on the table. But fathers have to give time to children. They've got to sit with their kids. They've got to look with them. They've got to talk to them. They've got to ask them, do you have any problems? Are you getting bullied? Are there any issues? Son, you can talk to me. You don't need to be scared. We shouldn't be putting fear into our hearts, children's hearts. It is with love. If we give them love, you will see them open up, man. And they will be close to you. Your best friend should be your son. Sayyidina Luqman, we talk about the Quran. Look at the story of Luqman. They say Luqman is al-Hakim. Some ulama write he was a Nabi. Others write he wasn't a Nabi. And when you read Surah Luqman, today every kid go home and read the translation of Surah Luqman. There are a number of verses in there. And in English it tells you, and when Luqman said to his son, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ, when Luqman said to his son, and then Luqman gives advice. Luqman gives advice to his son. Don't worship anyone except Allah. Only the worship of Allah Jalla wa'ala. Don't associate partners with anyone. Don't associate any partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Luqman tells his son, when you walk, make sure you're humble. He gives precious advice to his son. And a son and a father should have that relationship. A father should be there to advise, my son, this is how you should live life. Pray when you have to pray. Fast when it's the time to fast. Be good to people. Have good character. If you see your son swearing, tell him not to swear. You have to find the balance between love and discipline. Where you have to discipline your son, discipline him. Where you have to give them love, give them love. But we can't spoil our children so much that they're lost in the dunya. That we give them computer games and we give them, why are we giving them this as an alternative? Maybe they want your time. Why don't you take your son out with you? Take him out with you and let him see. Show him the world through your eyes. That's wrong. That's not how you should be. Keep him next to you. Nurture your children. We don't take our kids out. We don't spend time with them as much. Illa masha'Allah. And what's great to see here at Al-Hikam, most of this hall today is full of kids. The young lads who are sat around you here, with the exception of a few elders, these young people, guys, friends who have brought their sons with them to Jum'ah here, so that they can listen. So we need to give them books on Islamic history, give them the Quran, make them this is what will make them firm. I'm telling you, my younger brother Hafiz Mustafa, my younger brother, everyone knows, he leads the prayers, etc. There was a time he couldn't get off computer as well. He used to like computer games. He used to play all the time. Now he's 20 years old, he doesn't even touch a joypad. Because that's not the priority in his life. Now he's at university, he's studying, he wants to get a degree and get a job, and he works in the masjid, etc., for example. You will grow out of this phase. But don't waste your time now. This precious, these are our leaders, future leaders. If you see them as leaders, treat them as leaders, tomorrow they will be the leader. Something great will come from our generation. And this is what we need to do, encourage them, positive encouragement in the right direction, and inshallah you will see. And going back to the verse of the Quran, يَوْمَ نَدْعُو كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. Allah reminds us, on that day you will be called behind your leaders. You will be called behind those role models that you took. So who is your role model? Who do you look up to? Who do you want to learn about? And study and say, I want to be like him. This is who I want to be. Why? Because not only in the dunya will I be saved, But in the akhirah, Allah will save me as well, because I took this man as a leader of mine. And I'll tell you now, there is no greater role model for me and you than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the best role model. Study his life. Study his life. Learn about him. Just because you don't know who he is or you don't know his life doesn't mean you can't know his life. Study the seerah and you will see how you will get close to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam and take him as the best role model. وأقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم وآخر دعوايا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
يا إمام رسل يا سندي أنت باب الله معتمدي فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي